Good evening. Welcome to the big question on NDTV Profit. I'm Vikram Oza. Now, while these policymakers and the tech leaders have gathered in New Delhi for the India AI Impact Summit, they're celebrating India's ambitions in artificial intelligence. There is a very different kind of AI story that is unfolding globally. Disney sent out a cease and desist notice. It was sent to ByteDance over their generative video model. This has happened after a viral 15-second Dance 2.0 clip that features AI-generated versions of Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. That set off alarm bells across Hollywood. Studios accusing the tool of lapping into what they're calling a pirated library of Marvel, Star Wars, and other characters. So Hollywood unions have called it an attack on every creator and have demanded the company cease what they say is clear copyright infringement. Then ByteDance, under the kind of pressure that Hollywood mounted, has now promised tighter safeguards. So suddenly, the AI conversation is not just about innovation, it is about ownership. So at the heart of it lies this fundamental question. If an AI model is trained on copyrighted films or music or characters, must it first seek permission? Or is that simply how transformative technology evolves? For India, this matters, and it matters deeply. We are pushing to become an AI powerhouse. Even as our own filmmakers, they are warning, and you can see one of those warnings out there as well, that unchecked AI is a potential threat. That's what we're hearing. And we're also home to one of the world's largest film industries and a booming creator economy as well. So if consent becomes mandatory, does it protect Indian creators? Or does it make it harder for Indian startups to compete globally? Which is why the question that we're asking on the big question here, AI versus copyright, must generative content seek consent? Now that's going to be an important piece, looking at the future, looking at how transformative AI can be. How transformative is it going to be for filmmaking in general, considering we are such a huge hub for making films? So after Hollywood, is this kind of debate going to land at our shores? And if so, what's going to be the answer to that question? Let's discuss that and debate it. Let's bring in our great panel that's joining us tonight. Kapil Madan is joining us. He's managing partner at KMA Law Office. Along with him, we've got Jaspreet Bindra, co-founder at AI and Beyond. Good to have you. Harshvardhan Singh Deo is actor and a filmmaker and a founder of Divinity Studios. Jonathan Handel is with us, entertainment lawyer in Los Angeles. It's very early in the morning for you. I'm glad we woke you up and you're here joining us on the show. So let me get some quick responses from all of you first so we know where we stand. Kapil Madan, to you first, in one line, if you can tell us, should AI companies always take permission from creators before they train on their work?
So Vikram, this appears to be a very, very interesting debate and a very, very interesting question. And let me begin by saying this unequivocally, that insofar as copyright laws are concerned, consent is the foundation of this copyright law space, because you cannot make profit out of my labor, and you cannot call it an innovation by using some sort of a technology. So yes, I totally agree with you that consent plays a very, very important role, especially if you're trying to do and make commercial exploitation basis my work, my labor, and my creativity that I primarily invested in creating that database which you're trying to exploit.
But does the paradigm shift when we're talking about AI, considering how AI is moving and how quickly it is moving? Jaspreet Bindra, where do you stand? Are strict consent rules good for innovation, or do you think they're bad for innovation? Can I have your quick response?
Vikram, it's neither yes or no, it's a yes but. This is not the first time that such a cease and desist has happened. It's not going to be the last time. And what I would say is that, look, I think we have entered into what many people are calling a Napster moment for movies. Similarly, the way a Napster moment happened for music. And what happened there was that for a period of time, Napster was shut down.
Yes.
But new business models evolved, like iTunes, etc. And I think the same will happen more.
Harshvardhan Singh Deo, what's your take as a filmmaker? Because AI today, is it more of an opportunity or a threat, considering this debate now?
No, it's definitely not a threat, I feel. it's a tool which can be used as an opportunity from where I see it. But having said,
yes, go ahead, finish that thought.
As a creator, as a filmmaker,
yes,
IP is the only currency that I have. Everything else is intangible. So it is my prerogative to protect my currency with the best of my abilities. So I feel that the more than consent, I think it's protection from our side also, which is important.
So you need protection. IP protection is something that is going to be central to any creator. You heard that from the panel. Jonathan, in the global context, is the world moving towards mandatory consent, or do you think we are moving away from it?
Well, we need to move towards consent and compensation, because without that, we destroy the human creativity that these tools are in fact trained on. As you pointed out, the training data is not manufactured by machine. It's created by people. And it's true that every artist learns from another artist, from other artists. We all have our influences. I write, for example, I write poetry and other things. But to copy and ingest millions, hundreds of millions, even billions of pieces of our human creativity, macerate that and turn that into output without consent and without compensation is a road that we do not want to be walking down. What makes it complicated in the US is we have a concept called fair use, where certain kinds of use of other people's material without consent is permissible. For example, quotation in a news story. You can quote you're reviewing a book, you're reviewing a poetry book, you can quote the poem, that kind of thing. So the courts in the US are only just beginning to grapple with this, and until we get to the Supreme Court, which won't be for several more years at a minimum, we won't have a definitive answer as to the legal status here.
So what is fair use is going to be an important question, and is India going to be the one answering these questions and setting these regulations? We have an AI summit going on. Kapil, what do you think? This discussion had gotten ignited, for us at least, when Disney warned ByteDance, and then ByteDance says it will tighten its AI rules. But does this mean that AI companies must and actually will take permission from creators in the future if we do manage to get this regulation up and running? Or can we manage this with voluntary safeguards? Jonathan, what do you say about this?
Voluntary safeguards will take us nowhere. The amount of money involved here is so enormous, in both in the United States and internationally, in terms of the amount of money that the AI companies, the tech bros, possess, the amount of political influence that they possess. And this is also all tied up with the struggle for with the geopolitical struggles for global supremacy, particularly between the US and China, of course. But India as well is a country that, as you point out, is very technology forward and very content forward, with Bollywood and other regional production centers. So this is going to be something where countries like India have to have a place at the table, and it's no longer a US one-size-fits-all.
Do you think one size can fit all? Jaspreet, Bindra, how do you think this is going to play out? If we make permission compulsory for all training data, for example, and we were just talking about fair use, does that slow down innovation in AI? Or does it help build AI in perhaps a cleaner, in perhaps a safer kind of way?
Was that question for me? You froze for a little bit.
Jaspreet, that was for you.
Okay, lovely. Okay, so look, here's in a sense, the good news and the bad news. The good news is, contextually speaking, we've seen this movie before. Okay, this is not the first time that something like this has happened, where technology has come and disrupted quote unquote traditional business, in this case, the entertainment business. And as I was saying in my opening, I think we need consent, we need copyright protection, we need human creativity to be protected, but it's not going to happen in the current business or geopolitical situation. And so we will need to evolve new business models, actually, and not just sharing of copyright or sharing of money. And I think we can get into that later, but new business models are the answer. The bad news is that AI is moving much faster than anything else. And as Jonathan said, the power of the industry is much more than any such industry had before. And so therefore, sitting down together and evolving these new business models is not going to be as easy as it was.
Kapil, Madan, we're talking about Hollywood, which is saying that C-Dance used this pirated library of characters. If something like that actually happened here, what is the kind of legal action that you think would actually work in India? Because we're considering, and perhaps you heard a part of that conversation and what Jaspreet is saying as well, that, one size fits all. Is that even possible? Like Jonathan was saying, what has happened in the American context to kind of bring it forth over here? Or India taking the lead in regulations, how possible do you think that is going to be, considering what has happened in Hollywood and what Seedance has done?
Now, let me give you a context of what is happening in India. Insofar as our jurisdiction is concerned, there is already a case against OpenAI, that is pending.
Yes.
I believe there is one news agency who's filed a case against OpenAI, and they have basically raised these questions that because OpenAI is generating and creating outputs basis the information that was made available by that news agency. So insofar as the issues involved are concerned, these are sub judice pending before the courts. So therefore,
Oh, we seem to have lost connection again.
to see how and in what manner Indian.
No, we seem to have a patchy connection with you. Harsh, if I can ask you, because as a filmmaker, how do you weigh in on this? Do you see this as a moment to protect the creative rights strongly, because that's the kind of starting point you made? Or do you think there are ways in which could be smarter in nature, to collaborate with AI tools? Because I'm seeing a whole flush of films now that is coming from India, which is made entirely with AI. So that opportunity stands. Now, how we are going to innovate using the tools is going to be up to us. And we are a great creator economy in ourselves.
No, absolutely. So I'd like to answer in two parts. One obviously is me as an actor. So if I have to protect my my avatar rights as an actor, that would be another thing. And if I have it protected, I would be very happy to lease it out and earn out of it. Secondly, as a creator, I don't entirely see it as a threat, but I also see it as an opportunity, provided that it meets the quality standards of my imagination. Like, for example, nowadays when we use AI, there are a lot of glitches in terms of continuity of the same character, So there's a lot of fine tuning that is required. There's a lot of microscopic direction that is required.
Yeah.
Where I feel that we have a great opportunity to explore.
So you're saying that right now what we have by way of AI tools is not actually matching up with the human skills that are required for great filmmaking. Jonathan, what do you?
Of course,
isn't that what you're saying?
Not.
Yes, it's not up there. But technology is growing very fast. It is expanding fast, but it is also creatively kind of putting out a lot more than it used to, and in a very quick span of time.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. That if we know how to use it, if we know how to exploit it correctly, I think we can be the best versions of ourselves.
Yes.
Definitely.
Well, so you're making it futuristic, that it's not happening right now. So what happens in the meantime? Jonathan, realistically...
I'm an optimist.
You are an optimist, which is great. Sure. But realistically, the internet is global. Can we actually enforce consent rules across borders? What's the simplest workable solution to you?
Boy, that's a very hard one. And, we go back 125 years when the first movies were, in fact, also 15-second loops of film that people looked at in peep boxes. And it took, some number of decades for that to turn into full-length silent movies, then talking, then color, and so forth. And now, 70-millimeter extravaganzas. But digital technology moves a lot faster than analog technology does, let alone 125 years ago. And what we're seeing today as a 15-second demonstration type of thing that's not a complete movie. What are we looking at 3 years from now, 2 to 3 years from now? This moves very quickly at the same time that the courts move slowly, the legislatures, Congress, and so forth, and the parliaments move slowly. Even the unions, the Hollywood unions, have been out front in developing regulations 3 years ago as a result of the strikes. But they're negotiating again now, but they only negotiate every 3 years. So even that, there just is rapid change. And to your question, of what can be done globally, the answer will be imperfect. We have global copyright treaties. We have global discussions through WIPO and other organizations, some of which the U.S. unfortunately has withdrawn from under Trump. But there are global organizations. Let's not forget the European Union as well is very concerned about American technological dominance and American content dominance.
Yes.
So they're looking at this. They are another pole.
But Jonathan,
you really have.
Yes, but
Yes,
even
go ahead.
as these rules are there, but what about the voices and the faces? Should they be legally protected, just like we're talking about the scripts and the songs? How do we do that without blocking creativity like parody and satire?
Well, they are legally protected in the U.S. on what's called the right of publicity, name, image, and likeness. So that video, for example, of Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt is technically a violation of their rights. Now, that was done as a demonstration, not as a commercial project. No one's going to be. I don't think anyone's suing over that. But if I were to make a movie, a 5-minute movie, a 30-minute movie, whatever I can make with AI, say 2 years from now. I can use completely synthetic actors, and then I'm not violating anyone's name, image, or likeness. Or I could use Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and Harris Dickinson and so forth, and maybe a Bollywood star, and I would do that with their permission and with compensation to them. If I don't, I'm violating their rights.
Right. So that really begs the question, and Jaspreet, I'd like to come to you about that, because Indian studios, they're already experimenting, like I mentioned, with AI. When it comes to editing, when it comes to even the full AI-generated films, we're doing that. Should India then draw this line between using AI as a tool and using AI to replace actors and creators without consent, like the case we're talking about?
I'll say two things here. Number one is that, if you look at any survey today, you will see many surveys today, you'll see that countries like India, even China, and this part of the world is far more optimistic, far more proactive, and they've got a lot less to lose if they use especially AI. And so you're going to see that people are going to push the border here. And they're probably going to push the border here more, or push the envelope here more than many other places. The second thing I want to say, you mentioned creator and creator economy, and you said how India is such a huge creator economy. Now, what we sometimes forget, while being embroiled in this copyright debate, which absolutely needs some resolution, not the perfect one, is that in many ways, generative AI is democratizing filmmaking. So earlier on, where you needed these massive studios, huge amounts of money, producers, millions of rupees or dollars. Now today, with some of these tools, any human being, any one person, an individual can become a creator. And that, I think, is a massive opportunity for a young population like India. So as we draw up regulation, as we decide where the border should be drawn, I personally think that we should be a little bit more on the liberal end of things, because that will benefit from this democratization, the entire youth population, the population of India becoming, in some sense, amateur and maybe professional filmmakers.
So liberal, does it mean that we can give consent for free? Is that the ask over here? Is that how innovation is going to happen? Kapil Madan, if AI companies are told that they must pay for training data, how do we even calculate that? Is there a simple model that you think we can adapt?
So, Vikram, I'll just draw a parallel with Indian Performing Arts Society. So they also have a model. For example, if you want to use any, music, etc., in any particular event, you will need to take a license, and only after that license you can use those music, songs, etc. So I think you will ultimately have such kind of a regulation that will govern this space, wherein the license holder or the original owner of that copyright will get compensation for the original artistic labor that he had put in to create that copyrighted material. So I think revenue sharing is something which must come. And I will not be surprised if the government of India also passes any kind of statutory legislation to take care of these emerging issues out of the AI space.
That's an important one. In fact, when you talk about technology and adopting AI in filmmaking, we had a word at the AI summit with Shekhar Kapoor as well. Yes, he does say that it is happening and one must embrace it, though he says his time may have ended, but the younger generation is going to have to use it and get used to the ways in which AI is growing. Listen to what he told us.
जब भी नई टेक्नोलॉजी आती है, अमेरिका में भी जब साइलेंट फिल्म होती है, साउंड आया तो कहा फिल्म खत्म हो गई। फिल्म में साउंड थोड़ी होता है, म्यूजिक होता है, फिर लोगों की आवाज़, एक्टर की आवाज़। ये नई टेक्नोलॉजी है, बहुत बेहतर है। और इस टेक्नोलॉजी से क्या होगा, वो जो फिल्में 3-4 करोड़ में बनती थी, वो अब 2-3 हज़ार में बन जाएगी। बच्चा भी बना सकता है। तो और लाइक वो कहते हैं जिसको बैरियर, अरे मैं फिल्म कैसे बनाऊंगा, 300 करोड़ की फिल्म कैसे बनाऊंगा। अरे अब 300 करोड़ नहीं चाहिए, आप घर पे बैठे बना सकते हो फिल्में।
300 करोड़ की फिल्म नहीं चाहिए। हर्षवर्धन सिंह देव, आप शायद सुन रहे हैं। He is very clear that, of course, this is going to democratize. This is going to create a very open space. And if India is going to push that entire agenda, because we have so much creativity over here, then embracing technology doesn't have an option. Where do you draw the line, of course, is the question we're asking. So what parts of filmmaking should AI help with? And what parts should never happen without consent? Do you think you could answer that for us?
I feel everything should happen, and I'm all for experimenting. I myself am an outsider. I don't come from lineage. I don't come from film school. I come from a place of pure passion, you know, and
Yeah.
and it's a learning curve for me every day.
Yes.
So I'm totally like you know, for experimenting. I'm totally for learning new things every day and trying new things and breaking formats, breaking barriers completely.
Right.
The only place where I draw the line is, as I said, that because IP is my only currency, everything else is intangible. So IP protection is probably where I draw the line.
Yes.
And that is where I think, as Kapilji said, that statutory guidelines and laws have to be in effect for that.
Yes, exactly. So, in fact, let me take you across to Kapil. You know, Kapil, if Bollywood wants faster protection from any kind of misuse through AI, are there steps that you think India can introduce right away?
So there appears to be a gap. There is no statutory legislation as of now, but we do have a court's order where the courts have acknowledged the personality right of any individual, any star, because that has a commercial value. So all these stars, be it Aishwarya Rai, Salman Khan, and several others have filed petitions before different high courts, and they have sought to protect their personality right, because there are certain website, etc., softwares, etc., which are misusing their personality by creating their deepfakes and creating their voice, etc., and they are trying to use some they're trying to gain some commercial advantage by misusing their personality rights. So we do have a situation where we have judicial orders recognizing personality rights.
Correct.
But this is only an interim kind of an arrangement, because there is actually no legislation that governs the AI and how this entire, because this technology is changing so fast.
Yes.
So I personally feel sooner, very very soon, you will have legislation or a framework that will govern what.
And do you think that can be global?
I don't think so, because
No?
once of course the laws made by our parliament will apply only in our country.
No, I mean that can these regulations, like you have a summit, this is where the world is coming together. The concerns of AI and what it does and doesn't do, of course it does a lot more than it doesn't, but even so, is going to have global ramifications. Do you think India can take the lead, is what I meant, in framing those regulations that could apply elsewhere too?
So Vikram, what I think is that there could be, of course, yes, there could be a global legislation, and India may follow that legislation. Like we have international treaties, and we ratify this treaty.
Yes.
So there is something of that sort may emerge. We have something on the privacy laws that emanates from Europe. So yes, this appears to be a possibility, and this appears to be a bright possibility that something originates maybe from Western countries, or there are instances where self-regulating bodies are formed, and they come up with their rules, etc., to govern, and India might adopt
Yes.
those
So
self-regulating.
we could adopt. But Jaspreet, very quickly, since we've been talking about AI, the roadmap that India is following, we prefer the smaller, the domain-specific models. Do you think that is going to reduce copyright risk, or do you think that scale has not much to do in this matter?
No, I don't think so, honestly. Right. And look, I'll be honest here. I think if we think that we are going to have a regulation, whether in India or globally, led by India or otherwise, which will stop this happening, we are kidding ourselves. The race is not about regulation. Look, from where I stand, from every industry is going through this disruption, not only entertainment, a similar disruption. And the way out is not trying to create laws to, limit that, because by the time laws get created, etc., the technology is going to be far ahead.
Yes.
The way ahead is actually to work out. It's going to be business and how the businesses work together and how revenue shares happen and how new business models emerge is really where the game is. And that's where I think if we can work together and from India and other places lead, rather than trying to lead from a regulation viewpoint, which I personally think is EU is the European Union is anyway the king there, and they'll do that, and we might follow that.
Right.
But there's other creative ways of working together, which is where I think we should.
Right. So the focus should be on that, is what you think. Now, this AI copyright battle, clearly from the discussion that we've had, no longer this distant Hollywood issue. It's right here at our doorstep. Disney's warning to ByteDance has forced the world to confront this basic question, that should AI be allowed to learn from creative works without asking for consent? And our panel tonight is showing just how complex that answer is. The legal view says that consent may soon become unavoidable. The industry view is pretty torn. Creators want protection, the technologists, they want room to innovate. And our filmmakers remind us that while AI cannot replace human imagination, it can reshape the entire process of storytelling. For better or worse, we'll have to see. But amidst all this, my sense is that the future will need both. Just like my panelists are telling me, innovation is required, and so is consent. And India now has a chance to write its own rule book as well, even though it may be borrowed. A big thank you to my guests for joining us this evening. Kapil Madan, Jaspreet Bindra, Harsh Vardhan Singh Deo, Jonathan Handel, and it's great to have your perspective on this, and we'll continue this discussion. It's an important one. But thank you for your time, your clarity, and your candor. With that, it's going to be a wrap on this edition of The Big Question. The questions seem to arise as much as we talk about AI, and we've got a summit going on, a huge one in Delhi. We'll keep our focus on that, and there will be sectors to discuss in times to come. But for the moment, from all of us, good evening.